Nick, and this is my review of The Rise of Skywalker, Episode 9. And I'm going to spoil absolutely everything in this movie, so don't watch this if you haven't seen the movie yet. This will be a defensive movie, since the great majority of opinions I've seen are overwhelmingly negative. There are some people who did appreciate the movie Bob in particular, but most people seem to hate it the same way they hated The Last Jedi. So as my Last Jedi video was a defense, so will this also be a defensive video. Now let me say, I like fast-paced action movies. I think lots of story in the movie is a good thing. One of the people's biggest complaints I've heard is that it's too fast-paced, there's too much going on. And for this they blame The Last Jedi for giving them a blank slate. I think this was always the plan. In fact, I think a lot of this was always the plan. And I have evidence to support that claim. We jump right out of the box with Palpatine, and we see that Palpatine is alive, and he tells Kylo Ren that I am every voice you've ever heard inside your head, which I think is brilliant, that ever since he was training with Luke, and he thought it was Snoke seducing him, it was actually Palpatine. And that makes a lot of sense to me, that Palpatine was the real force power behind Snoke. This means Snoke really was just a nobody, just a puppet, and Palpatine was like using his power through him. Then he makes his offer of power to Kylo Ren, who has come to hunt him down on Exegol. He offers him the power of the Final Order and a true empire, which is what Kylo has always wanted, to be Vader and have the whole empire. Which even Vader didn't have the empire because he was just a second in command to the Emperor. As Kylo would be, but the Emperor is kind of shading the truth there. We hear that, he's like, oh, well, you died. He's like, well, I've died before. The dark side is a path to power that many people find unnatural. And this is echoing what he said to Anakin in 3 when he was talking about keeping Padme from dying. So, like, was this his plan to keep Padme from dying, give her a clone body? This is how the Emperor came back, by the way. You see clones in tanks, you see he talks later about his spirit passing into Rey. The combination of these two factors means that my theory was correct. That in the end of Jedi, when you see that energy come up out of the tube that he's thrown into, that is his dark side energy, and it goes to his clone banks where he had backup clones waiting in case he ever died. Because he foresaw everything. He must have foreseen the possibility that Vader would betray him. But the future is always in motion, as Yoda tells us, so you can't be certain which future you're going to get. This is all perfect, all hangs together with established Star Wars canon. So we got the Emperor back, and he's in a new, younger body. You can tell there's less lines on his face. He is younger, but the dark side power, the sheer amount of power in him, warps him to make him more evil looking. So that was just something that was going to happen anyway, I think, just because of the amount of power in his body. This is also something carried over from the EU, the Dark Empire trilogy. The Emperor survives the same way. His energy finds his clone bodies, and Luke and Leia become Jedi, and they have to kill all the Emperor's clones. And I think I'll cover those comics at some point, but this is enough Star Wars for now, so that'll be a later thing. So we cut to the heroes, and R2 finally gets something to do when he transmits the knowledge that we have from the spy within the First Order. And then Finn and Poe and the Millennium Falcon do their light speed skipping, and everybody likes the Finn and Poe pairing. They make a great team. I heard somebody say that they should have a buddy cop spin-off. That would be fun, but it's just great to see our heroes finally together and working together. They've been kind of split up through the original 2 movies of this trilogy. And Finn and Poe is a great pairing. Lightspeed skipping is awesome. People complain about it because, oh, this hasn't happened before, but why should it not be a thing? Rey complains about it as if she knows what it is. You can't lightspeed skip the Falcon, she says, and he says, well, apparently I can. You have to understand that Star Wars is what Star Wars tells you it is, and a lot of the defenses I have for things in this movie is simply going to be that it is awesome. And this is our last Star Wars in this series. Something being here because it's awesome, it is self-justifying. Get it in now while we still can. Then we see Rey training, rotating a bunch of rocks around her, a different pattern, saying, be with me. She's trying to connect with the spirits of all the Jedi who came before, and she's not quite doing it. So she hasn't, reached the level she wants to, but she has had tons of training now under Leia Skywalker, who we will see is a Jedi as well. And so Rey has this whole training montage where she's running through a course and she's doing the blocking the blasters with the blast shield down. She's doing everything we saw any Jedi ever do in terms of training. Is this enough training for you yet, you freaking haters? Just to put that to bed, some little things in this movie like that are apologizing to people who hated The Last Jedi and who hated Rey in general, trying to address the complaints of the audience, which I feel they worked into the story very well. I don't begrudge them being there. But from what I've heard from that part of the fan base, they are still not satisfied. So I wonder, what really is your complaint? If these things addressing your complaints aren't fixing them, what are you really mad about? Why do you really hate these movies? Ask yourselves. I think it's a really clever move with the stick when the droid is tracking the lightsaber and she can't hit it with the lightsaber, so she does a lightsaber throw and picks up a stick off the ground and hits the droid with the stick. Because it's tracking the lightsaber, it's not tracking this. This will come back later. This is just Rey's inventiveness and cleverness at work. Character traits that Luke really didn't have that much. Luke wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed. He was very brave and very strong and very good at heart. But he wasn't always the smartest, and that's something I like about Rey. I'm not saying she's a better character, but she's, approaching the same level of as good. I know that's a very controversial opinion. I really like Rey. I think Leia was really well implemented in this movie. The first time I watched it, I couldn't even tell, where they took these scenes from in the Last Jedi rough footage that they shot, and they were able to cobble together her part around it. It's so well done. I wonder if even they didn't change some of her lines, maybe, and alter her mouth with CG. I don't know. I can't wait for the special features to see how this was actually done. But the Rebels discuss Palpatine's return, and we get all the explanation we're going to get. Clone bodies and the dark side. That's all I needed. I think that's all anyone should need to explain why he's back. I don't think it was a mistake or an accident to kill Snoke. Snoke was never really that compelling a character, and we should have Palpatine back. I've heard people complain that this is no longer the Skywalker story, it's the Palpatine story. Well, guess what? He always was the Palpatine story. He's a way bigger force in the prequel trilogy than Anakin Skywalker ever was. He doesn't become important until the third movie. This has always been the Palpatine story. Same for the original trilogy. Luke Skywalker is not much of a factor until he blows up the Death Star, and even that is not as big a force as the Emperor himself, who runs the entire Empire. This has always been about defeating one man, She Palpatine. So Leia has a line that Palpatine was always there in the shadows, controlling everything, even from the very start. And this proves to me that Palpatine's return was always planned. If they shot this during the Last Jedi time, they must have already been planning to bring Palpatine back, because who else could she be talking about? Could she be talking about Snoke being behind the First Empire? Does that make any sense? No. Palpatine was always going to return in this episode. It was always planned. Rian Johnson did not screw up the plans by killing Snoke. And Luke, this was the plan. JJ said he didn't really disrupt any of my plans for the trilogy, and it was true. So, Rose got Jar Jar'd in this movie. She got pushed way into the background. She gets very few lines, very little to do. And this is in response to all the hatred for Rose. I think she just wasn't a very strong character, and so, I'm glad she doesn't have as big a role. But yeah, she didn't deserve to be frontline in this movie. But I'm glad she's still there at least, Leia tells Rey, never be afraid of who you are. This also shows that it was planned. If she shot this line for Last Jedi, this means that Rey being a Palpatine was always planned. That, why else would she be saying this to her? The context of the film makes it obvious that's what she's talking about, that Leia knows she's a Palpatine. This is always the plan. The answer inside JJ's mystery box of why is Rey so powerful, Rey was always going to be a Palpatine. And they were holding it out for this movie. It makes perfect sense. It fits with why Palpatine comes back. It fits with Rey's character up to this point. It makes her goodness so much more impressive, that she has this maximum evil heritage inside her, and it shows the nature versus nurture debate, that who you are is determined by who you want to be, not what your bloodline says you must be, which is Kylo's argument to her later. The dark side is in our blood. Well, guess what, Kylo? The light side's in your blood too, because you've got Luke, and Anakin's early life there, as well as the Darth Vader portion. So it really is, you're not cursed to be light or dark side. You can determine who you are, and that I think is the message of this movie: is self-determination. Now, we see the First Order discussing Palpatine's offer and his Star Destroyer fleet, and one guy says, well, they're just, his supporters are just a bunch of conjurers and soothsayers. And I heard one critic say that he thought Palpatine had conjured the Star Destroyers. No, this line when First Order says, well, he conjured a massive fleet of Star Destroyers, he's being facetious. This is a metaphor. These supporters built these ships. He did not conjure them with the dark side of the Force. They had been working on this for 30 years in the background. The Final Order plan. The First Order was always just a distraction, just to keep, the Resistance, the Rebellion, and the Republic on their toes and beaten down. They were kind of just doing his work for him while he prepared this final stroke. People complain that it's too fast-paced, that there's no slow scenes. What about Alien Coachella? This is a very slow scene, a chance to catch your breath. On second viewing, I don't think it is too fast-paced. Not nearly as fast-paced as this review. Which I tried to keep all these fast-paced, to keep the time at a minimum, and keep a maximum of information flowing. But yeah, they were not conjured, they were built. The Alien Coachella is a fun, slow scene, and we get to meet Lando for the first time in this movie. I think Lando was very well used. He gets a couple of very important scenes. It's so great to see Billy Dee back again in the character. And he gets a very important point at the end where he saves everyone by bringing in the rest of the galaxy as a fleet. We get a really fun speeder chase. Another thing we've never seen before, the sand bikes with these really fast treads that let the stormtroopers run through sand very fast. And the jetpack troopers, they fly now. I think that's really cool. We haven't seen flying clones. I think we saw them in the Clone Wars. I know they were part of the games and the show. I don't know if they were actually in the movies. But clone jetpacks were a thing. And it's great to see the First Order has flying troopers as well. It just fits within the Star Wars technology set so well. And when they fall into the desert and Rey finds the dagger and she force heals the snake, introducing us to force heal in this movie. Force heal was already set up in the Mandalorian, and force heal has been a part of the video games since forever. Jedi Knight, Knights of the Old Republic, it goes on and on. Force healing is a thing. So if you're complaining about they keep using the Force to do new things, yeah, they do. All the movies do. Every movie almost introduces a new way to use the Force, because the Force is not limited by your conception of it. The Force is magic in this space fantasy, and it can do pretty much whatever the writers want, but they've actually done a good job of sticking to established conventions of what the Force can do in the expanded universe. So there is a great deal of respect for the expanded universe. In Spirit, they don't translate anything directly, but they use a lot of stuff from it. Then we get the trailer scene where Rey is backflipping over Kylo's TIE fighter, and she cuts the arm off it, and that is just so awesome. I can't see anyone complaining about this because it is awesome. Rey attempts to force pull the ship that's taking Chewie down, and Kylo's battling with her, trying to make them let it go. And you may complain that this is too much Force power. Well, if you played The Force Unleashed, which these games were canon before the Episode 7 came out, he's Force pulling TIE fighters down like it's nothing. So this is also from established EU canon, which I wouldn't even call that EU because George Lucas specifically said these games are canon. The Force Unleashed and The Force Unleashed 2. So Rey cranks up her power to 11 and accidentally uses Force lightning on the ship, blowing it up and apparently killing Chewie. And thank God this didn't stick, because oh my God, she would never get over the guilt of herself if she had actually done that, if Chewie was on that ship. Instead, she just Force lightninged a bunch of Imperials to death. No big deal. Yeah, it's awesome. Her using the Force to this magnitude, and Kylo shows that he's just as strong. It's just awesome. The Chewie fake out is a clever thing because it gives us the emotional impact of Chewie's death while not actually sacrificing the character, and it gives the good guys motivation to go on with their plan, which is to get the Sith runes inside C-3PO to be translated, because the bad guys got the dagger now. And of course they need the dagger to get the Wayfinder to find their way to the Emperor. Sorry, that's just in there, so I have the full story down. So they go to a planet where Poe meets Zori Bliss, a bounty hunter or, some such that he used to know, and she's mad at him. And Rey shows her value yet again by beating up all of her guard friends and Zori and pulling out her lightsaber. And when she shows that she's able to kill this person, saying, "Look, we really need your help." And Zori's like, "Yeah, okay, I like you." That's Rey's version of diplomacy. Because she didn't really hurt or kill anybody on the good guy's side, or the gray guy's side, if you want to call it that. C-3PO gets his hero moment when he finds out they can translate the rune, but it will wipe his memory entirely. And so he takes a look around. And yes, he says, "I'm looking around at my friends," and he doesn't really know any of these people that well. But I think he is scrolling through his memory banks, looking at Luke and Leia and Han and Chewie and all of his actual friends from all the other trilogies. And they say that R2 backs up his memory. So I'm thinking that R2 started doing this after the prequel trilogy when he first got his memory wiped in Episode 3. When Bail Organa said wipe the protocol droid's memory, R2 probably started keeping a backup from that point on in case the humans ever decided to wipe his friend's memory again. So which is why he still doesn't remember the prequels, but he does remember back to Episode 4. And that's another fun thing R2 gets to do, but I think it pretty much happens. No, it's on screen. So, Poe and everyone, Poe and Rey and Finn find out, because Rey has the Force, that Chewie is on that ship, that he's alive, and they have to go rescue him. The Chewie rescue scene is very fast-paced. I make no apologies for this. It should be, because we have a lot to do in this movie and not a lot of time to do it in. It's almost 3 hours as it is. So they use the token that Zori gives Poe to get onto the ship while Kylo is searching the planet below. They're just blasting stormtroopers, and Rey mind tricks a couple troopers to tell them where Chewie is, which is just brilliant that she's figured out to use this not instinctively but intentionally. And that's how they find out where Chewie is. She goes to get the dagger, and we get our first really great scene. Rey and Kylo have been talking with the Force earlier. He used the Force link to snatch her necklace away earlier at Alien Coachella to find out where they were, and that's why the troopers chase happened there. And this Force link will get stronger and stronger. They'll use it more and more here. They have a lightsaber fight while they're in two different places. He's down on the planet, she's up in the ship, and yet they're having a lightsaber fight. The way this works in the terms of physics of the movie is they have an interference point between them. They can only see each other. They can't see each other's surroundings. And so their lightsabers can connect. Their hands can touch, which means their sabers can connect. There's no reason why this couldn't happen. The way the film shows this is them fighting in both locations at the same time, intercutting between them. I think it's really well done, honestly. I don't see why anyone's confused by this. You know? And think of it just like Force teleporting objects between them. And this was set up in The Last Jedi when he got water from her end, I think. But this is all set up. So, they happen to knock open a thing, and like beams spill out on the planet where Kylo is, and then they shatter the pedestal that has Darth Vader's helmet, and it falls into the planet beside Kylo, and he's like, "Oh, so that's where you are. You're in my freaking quarters." And so then everyone on the ship is onto him. They have to rush to get away. The good guys with Chewie, they rescue him, but they get caught by Hux. And Hux reveals that he is the spy, and he kills a bunch of troopers, and that goes nowhere because he's immediately killed in the next scene. But Hux has a great moment where, there's always been a power struggle between Hux and Kylo, and Finn asks him, "Why are you doing this?" He says, "I don't care if you win. I need Kylo Ren to lose," which is so partisan. He doesn't care if the First Order succeeds. He just wants to personally succeed. This is the weakness of the bad guys, I think, is this desire for personal glory over the winning of the team. And any team that operates like that is destined to lose. So, before Rey is able to leave the ship, Kylo tells her, "I know the rest of your story. I know who your parents were. They were junk traders, but they sold you off to protect you." And he confronts her in the hangar after the good guys have already escaped, thanks to Hux's rescue. And Rey just tells him, "Tell me who my parents were." And he reveals to her that Rey is Palpatine's granddaughter. That's why she's so strong in the Force. You have his power. And this is so mind-blowing, for everyone in the audience to finally find out who Rey's parentage is. And like I said, I'm sure this was always planned. This was not off the cuff. But anyway, Rey escapes onto the Falcon, and they go to the planet where they have to use the Sith dagger to find the Wayfinder, which is a moon in the Endor system where part of the Death Star landed. It's unclear whether this is the forest moon or not. We're not sure. It has greenery. It could be a different part of this planet or moon that has the forest on it, or it could just be a different moon because the whole Endor system is named Endor. But anyway, the dagger is one of those Indiana Jones things where you hold up to your eye and it fits the shape of the Death Star. And there's two ways this could have happened. One, since it's an ancient Sith dagger, they could have foreseen the future that it would need to have this shape. But I think it's much more likely that the Emperor made this after the Death Star fell as a way for Kylo to find him, or for anyone, who he might need in the future to find their way to him. And that's why it's Sith rune, so only a Sith could use it. And I think he went ahead and took an ancient Sith dagger and just reshaped the edge of it to fit this thing, and added that little part in the handle that comes out that shows you where the Wayfinder is. But we get my favorite fight in the movie, which is Kylo and Rey fighting on the ruins of the Death Star with this apocalyptic crashing water all around them. We find out from Finn that other stormtroopers have deserted, and this female stormtrooper is going to be very important for the final battle, her and her people and their space horses. And I think it's a little racist to assume that this black person is added in as a love interest for Finn. I think Finn and Rey are still the love story of the film. It's not shown, but I think that Finn is going to make his way to Rey's house after the movie is over, and they're going to at least go on a date and see if there's anything there. Why should she have to be alone? Why should they both drop this love story they've been building for the last two movies, where they always hug with such meaning and intent? I think Disney doesn't want to go all the way 100% on it, but I think it's definitely there for the fans who want to ship them. We see evil Rey in a vision, which we all knew that was going to be a vision when we saw it in the trailer, and she has a few clashes with her double red lightsaber. And this is what she would be if she did accept the evil in her blood and become the Empress, like the Emperor once or two. But of course she won't, because that's not her heart, that's not her spirit. But it's such an epic fight with Rey and Kylo, and they're so evenly matched. Neither one can really get the advantage on the other until Leia makes her sacrifice. From where she is at the Rebel base, she contacts Ben with her Force mind, and he's distracted because he feels his mother's spirit, and this allows Rey to get the upper hand and plunge his own lightsaber through his chest. And I so thought he was going to die. I really thought it. Even though they set up for us earlier, I didn't see this coming. That Rey is going to reach over and heal the wound she just made and say, look, I didn't want to take your hand, but Ben's hand. And then she leaves, taking Kylo's ship to go to Exegol to fight the Emperor. And Ben has my favorite scene of his in all the trilogies, when he's thinking about his life and his future and his past, and who should show up but Han freaking Solo in what I call the Superman scene. Because in the Superman movies, he's up on a mountain, he's talking to his dead father. It happens in the originals, it happens in Superman Returns, I think, and I know it happens in Man of Steel, where your dad's totally dead. There's no physical, magical reason why he should be there, because Han can't be a Force ghost, but here he is. And Kylo even says, you're just a memory. And Han says, I'm your memory. And he echoes his line from Force Awakens where he says, I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it. And Han tells him, you do. And he also gives him a look. He's like, Dad, he doesn't even say the words, I'm sorry. Han just says, I know. I know you're sorry for killing me. And he gives him the face pat. And Kylo throws his evil lightsaber into the ocean and turns to the light side. And we have Ben Solo finally redeemed in his redemption arc. Not completely, but by the end of the movie, he will be fully redeemed. And he will end the movie as a Jedi. And for people who didn't want this to happen, screw you. This was so good. This is such a good story beat. I love it. I love this freaking movie. It gave me everything I wanted and more. But Rey is so disillusioned. She actually didn't go off to fight the Emperor. I was wrong about that. She goes back to Ahch-To. But first, the Final Order's power is revealed when one of the Star Destroyers is sent out to blow up a planet the rebels know, and the Emperor sends out his message to the entire galaxy, worship me or die. And this is important because he's directly threatening everyone in the galaxy. This is why at the end all the galaxy's ships show up. It's not the rebel fleet, it's just people coming to fight on the side of good because the Emperor threatened to blow up their freaking planets. So it's like, okay, now or never. It's kind of like the Dunkirk evacuation. And Rey, we get to see Poe meet Lando, and that's a fun scene. I don't remember much about it because I'm so obsessed with this next scene where Rey is on Octo and she's throwing all of her Jedi crap into the fire, and she tries to throw her lightsaber, and who should stop it but Luke Skywalker as a Force Ghost. And he refutes everything he did in The Last Jedi in this scene. He says a Jedi's weapon should be treated with more respect, refuting the first thing he did in that movie. And he tells her, you know, she's like, but Master Skywalker, you said, and he looks like right at the camera and says, I was wrong. And it's the Luke we know, it's the Luke we wanted. And this is why Luke was that way in the last movie, to bring you down and make it feel hopeless, thinking if even Luke Skywalker has been beaten down to this point, there's no hope left for the galaxy. But Luke shows up here to restore that hope, to restore his character, and restore your faith in the Jedi. And he tells Rey so many things. She tells him, but I'm a Palpatine, and he says, Leia knew you were a Palpatine, so did I. And she's like, but she trained me anyway. It's because your heart and your spirit are stronger than your blood. He says, some things are stronger than blood. Her heart and her spirit are so good, and she is so drawn to the light side. And then Luke he tells her there's something Leia would want you to have, and he gives her Leia's lightsaber. And we see a flashback to when Leia had her training, because people complained that Leia used the Force without any training. You idiots, it had been 30 years. Luke told her you'll use the power as I have in Jedi. Do you really think he wasn't going to train her? You needed that on screen? Okay, here it is on screen, Leia's training, where she's lightsaber dueling with Luke. And she has a vision that her path will end with her son dying, and someone else picking up her work and carrying it on. And that's Rey. And so Rey now has Luke's lightsaber and Leia's lightsaber, and Luke tells her you'll take both lightsabers to Exegol. Because I think he knows that Kylo has turned at this point too. And if you wonder why Luke's character is so different, he was a broken down man, consumed by his mistakes and guilt at the end of his life in The Last Jedi. Now, he's joined with the Force. He is at peace. He's together with the spirits of all the other Jedi. That gives you a huge change of perspective. It's the same reason that Yoda was so different from when he was at the end of his life in Jedi, and why he was so different in The Last Jedi in his Force Ghost scene. He is at peace and happy. You're happy as a Force Ghost. This is important. This is like heaven for the Jedi. They're not like ghosts stuck around on Earth, you know, bemoaning their fate. This is the version of heaven for the Jedi, and also immortal life. So, the rebels are discussing, first Luke raises his X-Wing out of the swamp for Rey to use to get to Exegol, and he points out that she has the Wayfinder from Kylo's ship. So Rey is off to the end of the movie now, and we see the rebel fleet massing, or what's left of the resistance anyway. And Dominic Monaghan, says, why don't we use the holo maneuver? And someone says, that was 1 in a million. Proving, what we all thought, or at least what I thought about the holo maneuver not being a repeatable tactic, that it was an incredibly lucky stroke. Poe gives a very rousing speech to everyone about why this is our last stand, we have to win this once and for all. And they go off to destroy the navigational tower that will allow the Final Order ships to leave the system. The rebels begin their assault. Rey goes to confront the Emperor, and she's gonna kill him until he reveals that if you kill me, you will become the Empress. My spirit will flow into you. And that his spirit maybe is coming down from all the Sith in the past, because he claims to be all the Sith in one body, all the Sith's power. And you see all of his supporters in the stands cheering him on. Finally, it's the same plan as in Jedi. He wants her to fall to her anger and her hatred. He opens the ceiling up so she can watch her friends dying. He says that Luke was saved by Vader, but the only family you have here is me. The Emperor is so good in this movie, as he is always so good. And as Rey is watching her new family die, she actually agrees at first. She says, okay, fine, stop killing my friends and I'll be your freaking Empress. But not so fast, because and we can finally see in these close-ups that it is a younger Palpatine, that it is his clone body, and he's in some kind of medical chair keeping him alive. Kylo arrives. I should say Ben Solo arrives, and he makes his way toward the throne room. He has to fight the Knights of Ren, though, but oh no, he doesn't have a lightsaber anymore. What are we gonna do? Rey has pulled out her lightsaber, and she's like, okay, and the Emperor is giving us this overwrought, hammy speech about she ignites her blade and will strike me down. But she takes her lightsaber and puts it back here, and then Kylo Ben pulls it out from behind his head. She's passed it to him with the Force. We see her like questioning look, and him like give a nod, like yes, I've turned to the light side. And she gives him the saber of Anakin Skywalker, which he's always wanted, and now he finally deserves to have. And he destroys the Knights of Ren with it, and comes to the throne room. And the battle's going on outside. There's the space horses landing on the Star Destroyer, charging around, trying to stop, because that's now the navigational point. It's all sub to the main story, which is in the throne room. But they say, the rebellion resistance ships are getting picked off. Somebody tells Poe that there's more of us than there are of them. And that's Lando showing up with all the other ships of the fleet. While the Emperor tells Rey and Kylo that they're a dyad in the Force, that their Force link is something not seen in generations, the two who are one. And he uses Force Drain to start draining the life force out of them, restoring his own body, and it's our ultimate oh no moment. They both collapse to the floor, and the Emperor uses his new power to shoot the biggest burst of Force lightning you have ever freaking seen, and just disable all the rebellion ships. All of the ships in the sky are foundering now. It's like the Emperor, just one man, has enough power to do this. It's absolutely insane. It's so freaking epic. How did people not like this? Who's sitting in the theater not liking this? It is so awesome. Rey is on the ground. Oh, first, the Emperor hurls Ben Solo, says, as I fell, so will you fall, and he hurls him into a pit, and Rey is just whispering to herself, be with me, be with me. And all the Jedi from all the movies previous start talking to her through the Force, saying, we're with you. You hear Qui-Gon, you hear Ben, you hear Yoda, you hear Anakin, you hear Luke, you hear every Jedi, you hear Leia, and they are all with her. And Rey gets back up, she takes her lightsaber and blocks the Emperor's Force lightning, which stops his attack on the rebel ships, so they're able to go back to blowing up all the cannons that can destroy planets. And the Emperor is throwing this lightning, the same amount of power he was just using to disable all the ships, and Rey is just blocking it with her lightsaber. She brings Anakin's lightsaber with the Force and has them cross, almost like the cross against evil. And this is also trying to ape the success of Endgame, I think, because you got all the good guys, all the bad guys. The Emperor says, I am all the Sith, the way Thanos said, I am inevitable. And Rey looks right back at him and says, I am all the Jedi, the way Tony Stark said, I am Iron Man. So Disney's kind of becoming a one-trick pony when it comes to ending these massive franchises. And I just wanted to point that out. But she destroys the Emperor completely. His own dark force power lightning is turned back on him. You see his body actually break down layer by layer. He is really and truly dead this time. There's no energy escaping, and it explodes outward, killing all of his supporters with crushing rocks. And the heroes have blown up all the ships, and Finn and the Black Girl are on a Star Destroyer. As it's falling down, they're gonna die, but Lando comes in for a last-minute save with the Falcon, just like he saved Luke at the end of Empire. There's so many echoes to all of this, too. This was such a satisfying climax to one of the best film series in the history of the planet. How are you not entertained? What did you freaking want? This is awesome. This is amazing. We see that Leia... not yet. We're not done, because Rey is dead. Doing this, destroying him, using that much force power through her body, killed her at the same way it killed Luke. She just slumps down to the ground. But Kylo Ben comes back up out of the pit and comes over to her, picks her body up, and passes his force power, uses Force Heal on her to bring Rey back to life. And I heard someone, I think Anti-Trekker, said that Kylo should have lived and Rey should die. No, Kylo was evil for so long. He did so many evil things. He didn't deserve to live. Rey did. She's our hero. Why do you hate Rey so much? So he brings Rey back to life, and she kisses him, making all the Reylo shippers happy before Ben dies himself, and he disappears into the Force, so he becomes a Force ghost, and it's at this moment we cut back and see Leia's body disappear as well as she passes into the Force. Mother and son going together into the Force. All the heroes are celebrating back at their planet. Chewie finally gets his medal, which I know made my mother very happy. She said it was long overdue that he got his medal. It's the same medal they got in Episode 4. And then Rey goes to the Lars homestead to bury Luke and Leia's lightsabers together in case they're ever needed again. You know, maybe she'll start up a new Jedi Order someday. We don't know. I happen to think she will. And an old woman asks her, "There's been no one here for so long. Who are you? What's your name?" And she says, "Rey." And earlier someone asked her at Alien Coachella, "What's your name, Rey? What's your family name?" She says, "I don't have one." And he asks her, what's your full name?" She says, "Rey Skywalker." She sees Luke and Leia's Force ghosts off in the distance like her new parents. She's found the family and the belonging she's always wanted. Her arc is complete. She is Rey Skywalker. You are who you choose to be, not who nature and your bloodline decided you should be. And it's such a good message for such a good movie. Honestly, if you really hated this movie, I just can't understand you, and you're not a real Star Wars fan, because this was such a satisfying conclusion to the trilogy of trilogies, and I can't wait to see what Disney does next. You know, that's about it. That's all my thoughts in this movie is just pure praise and adulation. They had such an impossible job to do to wrap this up conveniently and satisfy most of the fan base. If you're angry and you still hate these movies, there's something else wrong with you as a person. There's something else going on. These movies are not the reason you hate them. You are the reason you hate them. And I urge you to look inside yourself and find out what that is that stops you from loving these movies. And with that, I say thank you for watching and thank you for your time.